To the explainer. Today, we're putting on our media studies and political philosophy hats to unpack something truly fascinating. We're going to look at how globalized power dynamics are portrayed in both popular anime and real world conspiracy theories. Specifically, we'll take the epic fictional world of Ichiro Oda's One Piece and put it right alongside historical paranoia to see what these stories actually tell us about human nature. It's essentially a structural breakdown of power, perception, and the shadows that supposedly govern us all. So let me ask you this. Why are we so utterly captivated by the idea of a secret global elite running the world from the shadows? It's a concept that pops up literally everywhere, from the manga we read to the darkest, deepest corners of internet forums. Whether it's a council of shadowy elders or an illuminated cabal of bankers, we as humans constantly use these grand narratives to make sense of complex, overwhelming power structures. But where exactly does the fiction end and the real world psychology begin? Okay, here's our game plan for today. 1. Fiction's ultimate global empire. 2. New World Order conspiracies. 3. Comparing fiction and paranoia. 4. The psychology of conspiracies. And finally, 5. Real authoritarian mechanisms. Let's dive in. Section 1. Fiction's ultimate global empire. If you're familiar with One Piece, you know the world is absolutely dominated by the world government. We're talking about a sprawling 170 nation empire that has stood firm for 800 years. Now, publicly, it's run by the Five Elders. These guys are a class of untouchable nobles called Celestial Dragons, and they divide absolute global authority into 5 specific bureaucratic pillars. As you can see, you've got justice, environment, finance, agriculture, and science and defense. They act as the ultimate face of order for the world, managing everything from advanced weapon projects to global information networks, all to fight the perceived threat of piracy. But here's the thing. A global empire of that size doesn't just survive on bureaucracy and paperwork alone, right? The elders maintain their incredibly precarious balance of power through massive military and covert organizations. They've got the Marines acting as their primary military face, complete with these devastatingly powerful admirals. Then, working completely in the shadows, you have Cypherpol. This is a vast network of undercover intelligence agents and elite masked assassins who answer directly to the nobles. And if things get truly out of hand, the Holy Knights of God step in. It is a terrifyingly efficient system of total global enforcement. Now, here is where it gets wild. The crucial twist is that despite the public face of the Five Elders, they aren't actually the ones at the very top. At the center of this government sits the empty throne. It's supposed to be this grand symbol of equality among nations, but it's a complete lie. The throne is actually occupied by a hidden absolute shadow ruler named Nerona Imu. The entire massive structure, from the 170 allied nations all the way down to the secret assassins, secretly answers to this single unseen sovereign. Section 2. New World Order Conspiracies. All right, let's step out of the realm of anime for a second and look at these exact same concepts through the lens of real-world historical paranoia. Proponents of the New World Order, or NWO conspiracy, believe something strikingly similar to the plot of One Piece. They speculate that a secretive power elite with a globalist agenda is actively conspiring to eventually rule the world through an authoritarian, one-world government. Believers think this cabal operates through front organizations, taking advantage of crises to basically eradicate the sovereignty of individual nations. Now, this kind of paranoia didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's evolved over centuries. Back in 1776, an actual secular secret society called the Order of the Illuminati was founded in Bavaria. It was quickly shut down by the government, but the myth of their secret survival sparked some serious, lasting paranoia. By 1877, real historical figures like Cecil Rhodes were openly advocating for a secret society to help form a British imperial federation to basically control the globe. Fast forward to the 1990s, and the conspiracy shifted targets. Right after the Cold War, anti-globalist sentiment really surged, and the theoretical enemy morphed into a shadowy oligarchy of international bankers, politicians, and corporatists. So, how do conspiracists claim this elite cabal actually implements their New World Order? Well, they point to a mix of global institutions and broad social changes. Believers claim that organizations like the United Nations are just shadow vehicles for this global government. They speculate heavily about mass surveillance, population control, and even mind control technology. They tend to view public health crises or domestic gun legislation as deliberate infringements on freedom specifically designed to subdue the populace. And, they obsess over secretive meetings like the Bilderberg Group. The assumption is basically because the discussions are private, they absolutely must be plotting world domination. Section 3, comparing fiction and paranoia. And this is brilliantly illustrates where these themes intersect. It's like looking in a mirror. On the left, One Piece gives us Nerona Imo and the Five Elders. On the right, NWO theories give us Illuminati elites and shadow cabals. In the fiction, the government literally censors 100 years of history, the Void Century, and uses massive military bombardments known as buster calls to annihilate entire islands just to keep their secrets. Over in real-world paranoia, conspiracists claim elites use media mind control and manufactured crises to suppress the truth. Ultimately, both narratives tap into the exact same human fear, that our autonomy is just an illusion, and an untouchable superclass is secretly pulling all the strings. Section 4, the psychology of conspiracies. So, what's really going on here? Why do stories of hidden rulers captivate us so deeply? Psychologists actually have a specific term for this: agency panic. It's an intense anxiety about an apparent loss of autonomy to outside forces or regulators. Skeptics point out that conspiracy theories very often take root in people who hold super strong individualist values, but who currently lack actual power or control in their own lives. When a fervent individualist feels they simply cannot exercise their independence, they experience an acute psychological crisis. Their brain basically tells them that massive, sinister outside forces must be the blame for usurping their freedom. The crucial takeaway here is that blaming the shadows is essentially a coping mechanism. Frankly, it is psychologically way easier to believe that a hyper-competent, secretive Illuminati or a fictional world government is orchestrating everything than it is to accept that the world is mostly driven by random chaos, conflicting interests, and sheer coincidence. These stories, whether we're talking about right-wing NWO paranoia or an incredibly engaging Japanese manga, give a narrative structure to a complex and overwhelmingly chaotic world. Section 5, real authoritarian mechanisms. So let's play out a hypothetical. If a One Piece style global authority actually existed, what would society look like over, say, a 100-year period? Well, political science tells us real control is actually pretty mundane. A true global regime wouldn't rely on magic or superweapons. They would navigate legitimacy using four primary mechanisms: symbolism, information control, institutionalization, and alliances. Now, a centralized system like this could potentially bring massive stability, high-level global coordination, and a huge reduction in armed conflict. But, of course, that comes at a severe cost. Take the control of information, for example. The ultimate risk of centralized power is total censorship and the loss of your individual freedoms. But unlike the dramatic, explosive buster calls used in fiction to wipe out dissent, real information control is quiet. It's systematic. It involves subtly censoring dissenting voices, shaping public discourse to present a favorable image, and fostering a cohesive national myth. They use historical revisionism to align the past with their current values. This ensures total compliance over generations without ever needing to physically destroy an island. Plus, real-world authoritarians institutionalize their power by creating extensive, honestly kind of boring bureaucracies and specialized security forces. Crucially, they build massive patronage networks, rewarding loyalists with resources and influence to neutralize any dissent before it starts. The hypothetical benefit here is absolute global security, but the reality? A complete lack of accountability. It's not some secret chess game with the devil in a dark room. It's simply making the regime seem so stable, so permanent, that opposing it feels literally impossible. And honestly, this highlights the very real danger of confusing reality with fiction. Take a look at this quote from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. Getting lost in these New World Order conspiracies feeds into a highly dystopian worldview. It induces massive mistrust and fear of actual functioning global institutions. Now, scholars definitely note that a global superclass of influential business and political leaders absolutely exists. And yes, they act in their own self-interest. But conspiratism takes that reality and twists it into extreme cynicism and convoluted thinking, which ultimately just undermines society itself. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought. If a concentrated global power actually existed, would its stability ultimately improve human civilization, or would the inevitable absolute abuse of power destroy our freedoms entirely? Does fiction, like One Piece, allow us to safely explore this agency panic, or do real-world conspiracies merely trap us in a cycle of hopeless paranoia? It's a really fine line between seeking to understand the structures of power and being completely consumed by the shadows we invent. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and as always, stay curious.